And we are live again. It's Friday. Well, if I'm doing this stuff, it's definitely Friday at 4 o'clock Pacific time. And it's time to drink. This has been kind of a really long, hard week. It's funny, with the pandemic and everything, I think most people are actually working longer. I know I am. I work longer hours. People that aren't used to working at home are trying to set up boundaries for how they work. And I think they end up just kind of not setting boundaries. And so for those of us that have had a home office forever, it kind of sucks because it seems like we're on the clock all the time. So I'm super happy the week's done. I'm super happy it's Friday. We got a super easy drink, but it's actually super tasty. And it's totally a summer drink. I remember drinking this, in my 20s. It was kind of a thing to get, Seabreeze, right? What I didn't know was some history behind the Seabreeze. And so I dug some stuff up. And actually, it's pretty interesting because there's different stories on how the Seabreeze came into being in its current incarnation, which is super simple, right? Seabreeze is vodka, cranberry juice, and grapefruit juice. That's all it is, right? It's an easy drink to make. But now what's the history behind it? So my favorite story is it's actually tied to a post-cranberry panic that happened up here in the Pacific Northwest. In November of 1959, there are a bunch of cranberries that were discovered to have traces of a herbicide called aminotriazole. And this herbicide was causing cancer in rats. So naturally, the U.S. Secretary of Health advised Americans at the time to stay away from cranberries because they could give you cancer, right? Because of this herbicide. And so naturally, the cranberry growers themselves and the cranberry farmers took a pretty big hit, right? I mean, when the U.S. Secretary of Health says don't eat cranberries because it could give you cancer, it tends to kind of stop those farmers from selling a whole lot of cranberries. So at the time, now remember, this is 1959 when this happened. So 1960, this little growers collective of cranberries formed in the early 30s. And this little collective of growers was known as Ocean Spray. So 1960, fast forward to 1960, the U.S. Department of Health puts a kibosh on cranberries, says it could cause cancer. The collective is up in arms, like, oh my God, how are we going to sell cranberries? So they started publishing these little recipe books that would encourage people to, eat cranberries. Super interesting stuff, right? So this part I'm going to read because I think it's just kind of funny. So according to the archives at Ocean Spray, in the 1960s, the company began suggesting a cranberry-centric cocktail that included vodka and grapefruit. And here's a quote. There's a recipe card and 2 Cranberry Kitchen newsletters that include cranberry juice and grapefruit, but not the Seabreeze specifically, says Christina Ferzil from Ocean Spray. From what I can recall, there were many versions of the Seabreeze cocktail, but Ocean Spray was the one to add cranberry to it. And she's actually correct in that. And so I think that the cranberry panic of 1959 probably did create the modern Seabreeze. And it's funny because most people think it was created in the 80s because that's when it became super popular, right? But there's a bunch of alternate stories around there. And probably and it's funny, like drinks change over time. So many drinks change over time. One drink starts as a certain type of drink, ends up as something else. So this stuff's with a grain of salt. But there's all kinds of, like, bartenders historically have been really crappy at passing knowledge on. Bartenders had a lot of gamesmanship. And so recipes for good drinks just never kind of got out. But this particular one, I think, has some credence. And it dates back to the 1920s in this old bartending book that this bartender found, which involves gin, right? Not vodka, but gin. And I think how it got switched from gin to vodka was this bartending book was found in London in the 1920s, right? Gin was super huge back then. So it makes a lot of sense that they would have used gin. When it came over to the States, somehow it got kind of mixed from gin to vodka in the Seabreeze. And then a lot of other things changed and the Seabreeze evolved like every other drink and to what we have now. So that's kind of the story of the Seabreeze. I think it actually was kind of cool. I didn't realize there was this kind of, cranberry panic in 1959 over a herbicide that was killing rats. But because of that, we have a nice, tasty drink. Now, I used to get Seabreezes and Greyhounds mixed up all the time. I remember, you turn 21, you go to a bar, and your knowledge is very limited. Usually you're drinking beer or you're having straight shots of something because you have no clue what to drink. So for those of you that are young and just turned 21, I hope you get good knowledge and good lessons out of what I'm trying to impart to you guys. But I could never get them straight. Like Greyhound, Seabreeze, I'm like, they both have grapefruit juice. They both have vodka. The difference is super simple. A Greyhound is really just vodka and grapefruit juice. A Seabreeze is that plus cranberry juice, right? I mean, Ocean Spray, dump the stuff in there to, get people to drink cranberry juice during the Great Pacific Northwest Cranberry Purge or whatever. So it makes sense, right? But they're super simple, super easy to make. Now, the twist on this is I'm not using vodka, and we're making our own. We're not actually going to use cranberry juice. Instead of that, we're making our own type of simple syrup. This is what I call homemade pomegranate. And here it is right here. I just put it in a little mason jar. And all this is like I posted on Facebook. All this is equal parts of pomegranate juice and sugar. And it's funny. I'm not exactly sure how I came across this. I know that there was this little bottle of pomegranate juice. My kids drink it. My wife drinks it. It was sitting in the freaking fridge forever, like half drank. It was driving me absolutely crazy because I'm anal retentive like that. And I wanted to get rid of it. And I came across a recipe that called for this what they called homemade grenadine. And the homemade grenadine was essentially a simple syrup made from pomegranate, right? Juice and sugar, right? So it's just equal parts pomegranate juice and sugar. So I made this stuff. It's actually pretty tasty. It kind of tastes a little bit like grape juice, actually. But it's super easy. Equal parts pomegranate juice and sugar. Let it, you don't want a roiling boil, but, put it on high heat, stir it until the sugar totally dissolves into the pomegranate. Take it off, let it cool, put it in a jar, whatever you're going to put it in. One thing to do whenever I make my own syrups is I put in a little bit of vodka, probably about a teaspoon of vodka and something like this, because it does two things. You'll notice there's no crusted sugar around the rim or anything like that. It's not there. And on the inside, same thing. The vodka helps with that. It actually keeps the sugar from granulating again. It also helps it stay a little longer in the fridge. So if you're making your own simple syrups, which I highly suggest you do, add a little bit of vodka. It doesn't change the flavor or the taste of the syrup you're making, and it will keep the sugar granulation from happening. So do that. So this is a little bit different. I don't know if we call this a Seabreeze or whatever, but I call this my old school made new Seabreeze, right? So we're going to make this with gin, not vodka. I think gin is a better fit for a Seabreeze. I think the botanicals in the gin work a lot better with the homemade grenadine that we're using. And actually it works really well with the grapefruit juice we're using. And oddly enough, we're using Ocean Spray grapefruit juice. Who knew? Ocean Spray conglomerate takeover, I guess, of the Steve Drink Show. So we're going to use gin. We're going to use this homemade pomegranate. We're going to use that awesome Ruby Red grapefruit juice. And we've got a lemon here for garnish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you down a little bit here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. glass. There we go. So we're going to. This isn't a shake and drink. We're going to mix this one up. So we're going to start with a big ass ice cube. Big ass ice cube. And remember, all of our drinks have at least 2 ounces of booze, right? So let's go ahead and add our gin, 2 ounces. We've got our jigger. Got a nice pour, 2 ounces there. The gin that I use is Hadley & Sons. And you can tell all my house boozes. I put all my house boozes in decanters, whether they're bourbons, gins, tequilas, whatever, because I like to aerate them a little bit. I guess it's kind of like wine. I don't think alcohol like the spirits like this. They really don't need to decant, but I do it anyway. I just kind of like the look. But this Hadley & Sons gin that I use, like I have this stuff around all the time, and I'm actually jonesing a little bit. I buy this stuff by the half gallon, by the way. It's a rated gin. It's like 90 points gin. It's super good. It's inexpensive. It's like $25, $26 a half gallon. I buy it by the half gallon because I like it that much. And it makes great mixing. And you can actually just drink it neat or on the rocks too. But the gin is Hadley & Sons gin. So we've got 2 ounces of gin in there. Okay, we're going to put just a little bit. Here's the hard part. We're going to put just 1/4 ounce of this homemade grenadine in there. Just a little bit. Okay, there's 1/4 ounce of homemade grenadine. And this stuff is so sweet that you don't need a lot. Okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to put about 2 or 3 ounces of pink grapefruit juice in there. You could also just kind of fill it up to the top if you want. I'll use 3 ounces here. I'm probably be drinking a little bit more tonight, so I don't want to totally hammered me up. So there's our grapefruit juice. Okay, bar spoon, we're going to stir that up. Okay, and then we've got a lemon here. We're going to put a nice lemon garnish on that. Put a little lemon wedge on there. Okay, there's my lemon. We're going to rim the glass. Okay, so super easy. This is Steve Breeze. It's 2 ounces of gin, 1/4 ounce of that homemade pomegranate simple syrup, 3 ounces of pink grapefruit juice, and lemon for garnish. Okay? Now that that's all made, let's taste it. It's super tasty. The one thing about, so I tried this against like just a normal Sea Breeze with vodka and cranberry juice. And I like this a lot better for 2 reasons. One, I like gin better. I think the gin mixes those botanicals in the gin. Even though this Hadley & Son is a pretty clean gin, it's more, it almost tastes like a dry gin than a more like American botanical gin, but it's absolutely an American gin. Typically the London gins are a lot drier. They don't have the botanical taste. They taste like pine trees. They've got that super hard juniper berry taste. But American gins are a lot more varied in flavor. Hadley & Sons is an amazing gin. It kind of straddles that. It's a nice clean gin. It's got just enough botanicals where you know it's a good gin. It's not overwhelming. It mixes really well. But I put this side by side with a regular Sea Breeze. I like this a lot better. Like I said, I think the gin works a lot better. It's actually not as sweet. It's not quite as tart as using cranberry juice. I don't really like tart stuff that much unless I'm trying to counterbalance something super sweet. That's super tasty. So I like it from that aspect. I also like it that I'm only using a little bit of this homemade pomegranate stuff. So it's not quite as sugary as cranberry juice. And you can kind of play with the grapefruit juice as much as you want to kind of get the flavor you want. The other reason why I like this, and we've talked about this before, the reason why I like gin, I don't like vodka, is vodka really doesn't have a lot of taste or flavor, right? I mean, it's a very, very neutral alcohol. Gin, on the other hand, depending on the gin you get, has all kinds of flavor and all kinds of taste. And the cool thing about this is depending on the gin you pick, it will change the flavor of this. And so if you get a really good botanical gin, you get kind of a refreshing, like a more refreshing botanical taste, obviously, out of it. It's hard to explain until you try it. If you go like with a London dry or just a regular dry gin, you'll get more kind of fruity flavor from the pomegranate and the grapefruit juice. So you can kind of go either way, and it changes the taste and the complexity of the drink. And that's why I like using gin more than vodka. Other than vodka is a drink for 18-year-olds. I mean, come on, let's be serious. Between you and me, come on, I always keep vodka around. It's a neutral spirit. It's a great kind of neutral spirit for mixing, but it doesn't have a lot of flavor, right? But you can't make a Vesper Martini, God bless that drink, without vodka. So I'm all about vodka too. But in this drink, gin. Gin's my choice. So for the Steve Breeze, I guess, 2 ounces of gin, just 1/4 ounce of that homemade pomegranate juice, about 3 ounces. I probably wouldn't go any more than 2.5, 3 ounces of grapefruit juice. I just think you're losing the flavor. But, you know, to each his own. And a lemon wedge. And that, my friends, is a Steve Breeze. So super easy to make. You just have to put a little bit of prep for that homemade pomegranate. Or sorry, I call it homemade pomegranate juice. It's not. It's like homemade grenadine. It's just pomegranate simple syrup. That's the only prep you have to do. And that prep, literally, like, you make the stuff in 5 minutes and then you just let it cool. One thing about simple syrups, if you're making them, I always find that it torques me off because I want to make a drink and I look in the fridge and I'm out of whatever syrup I want. I've got the stuff to make it, but I haven't made it. And there's actually a pretty easy trick you can do. You make it right there, but you don't want to put hot syrup in a drink. And just put it in like a bowl of ice. Take the pan and put the pan in a bowl of ice to cool the pan down. It'll cool the liquid down. Within 5 or 10 minutes, you've got your syrup all ready to go for a drink. So it's kind of just-in-time drinking. I don't know. It works out for me, though. So Steve Breeze, hope you like it. I like it a lot. Next week, I'm not sure what we're going to do. There's a couple ways we could go. My buddy Clark Butler, who is here every week, this week he couldn't make it because he's, oddly enough, on his way to the Washington coast. And I hope that he actually visits the cranberry bogs and looks at the ocean spray dudes, right? Because it's perfect for him. But he sent me a drink called Enzoni, which I'd never heard of before. And it reminds me of kind of a gin version of the Kevin, actually, that we made, or the drink with no name. I still call it the Kevin because I can't think of anything better. But the drink with no name that we made a long time ago, it's really good. It's gin and Campari, and it sounds disgusting and nasty, but it somehow works really well. So we may make that next week. We may do something else. There's a whole bunch of stuff I got on tap. This is either week 15 or 16. Like, we've been doing this for a long time. I think this is week 15. And at some point, I'm going to run out of drinks. I still have, there's probably at least a good dozen drinks that I want to make with you guys. One that I want to make with you guys is super cool because it uses like a blender or food processor. It's a Southern Peach Manhattan. And this thing is freaking loaded to the gills with booze, but it tastes like, I mean, it's almost, it's hard to explain. It's a sweet drink, but it gets its sweetness from peaches. And it is loaded to the gills with booze. And it is a fancy, fine drink. And so I may, we did Manhattans early on. This is, I mean, it tastes like a Manhattan, but dude, it's different. And I think I want to show you guys how to make that because I think we've never made a blender drink yet. So, we'll puree some stuff live and we'll see how nasty that gets. But we may do that. That's super yummy. There's a whole bunch of other drinks that I want to do too, and I have on tap for you guys. As always, send me any ideas. Matt Christensen kind of challenged me, if you guys take a look at the post on Facebook, to make an Everclear drink. That'll be a tough one. I do not like Everclear. I'm not sure anyone likes Everclear. It's 180 proof. They actually do sell in the state of Washington now. And I am going to accept that challenge, and I am going to make an Everclear drink that is drinkable. Might take me some time to figure out. But remember, like with every good drink, you've got a spirit, you've got a sugar, and you've got something to cut that, which is usually a citrus, right? So I'm going to go back to the basics. I'm going to start with those things, and I'm going to make an Everclear drink at some point. I probably won't be drinking it as fast as a gin drink, though. So I hope you like the Steve Breeze. Again, super simple. 2 parts gin, or 2 ounces of gin, 1/4 ounce of this homemade grenadine, which is just, it's pomegranate simple syrup. It's pomegranate juice and sugar. And then 2 to 3 ounces of grapefruit juice, lime for a garnish. Like I down these like crazy, but sip them. They're good, and they're great summer drinks. They're amazing summer drinks. You can make these by the pitcher, and they're perfect. Hope you guys have fun this week and this weekend. Take care of yourselves and your family, and we will post the next set of ingredients for drinks on like Tuesday, Wednesday, or something next week, so you guys have enough time to go out and buy whatever you want if you want to follow along. Otherwise, take care, everybody, and I will see you next week. Cheers.